Voices heard every now and then to leave the occupied Ukrainian territories to Putin and feed him with Ukrainian lands and a promise that Ukraine will not be accepted in NATO. Appeasing a monster populist tactics won't benefit Ukraine or the world or NATO. It will benefit only the monster. And that is exactly as stupid and ugly as a perverted realm of populism is. Good afternoon, this is Henry Keane on UATV English, bringing as usual hard truth to easy terms for the whole free world directly from Ukraine. Democracy is not a panacea at all. It is a burden. It is a fight you have to win, fight for your rights, for your voice to be heard, because the majority of people are either ignorant or ignoring. This is why populism always was the king. We can't give a half of Israel to Hamas and politely ask terrorists not to terrorize, not to rape, not to behead and burn people alive, at least on camera. We cannot appease dictators at the expense of the freedom of others. We cannot heal the sick at the expense of the healthy. To educate fools at the expense of the smart. In regards to Putin, we cannot be negotiating with a head of state who is indicted by ICC at our Ukrainian expense. Believe it or not, the negotiations with Russia are pointless. Russia has never held its obligations in good faith, such yourself. Between 2014 and 2022, Ukraine had nearly 200 rounds of talks with Russia. During these times, 20 ceasefires were agreed upon. All of them were violated by Russia. None of these 200 rounds of talks or the 20 ceasefires have prevented Putin from launching a disastrous criminal full-scale invasion of Ukraine on February 24th, 2022. Those who say that Ukraine should negotiate with Russia now are either ignorant or misinformed, or they support Russia and are happy to give Putin a break before launching a larger offensive. Weeks before Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine, the entire Russian authority, from the Tsar himself to Russian embassies, was telling their respective counterparts that they would not attack. "I am not going to attack," said Putin to Scholz, to Macron and other leaders. All was lies. An air raid alert is blaring right now while I'm telling you this. Russia is a mill of fakes producing lies on an industrial scale. What is it that make populist believers believe that Russia will behave differently tomorrow while behaving exactly otherwise for decades? We in Ukraine are simply not buying it anymore. Putin is an international thug at large, and we are not going to negotiate with thugs. Full stop.
When someone comfortably sitting thousands of kilometers away from war and casually speculating about others' fates suggests that Ukraine agrees to negotiations surrender after more than 600 days of bloody genocide, they are actually proposing to let Russia continue committing crimes, massacring civilian population, violating global rules, until the world is completely drowned in democratic blood and recognizes tyrants as global leaders. Mikhail Podolyak, advisor to the head of the office of the President of Ukraine, on social network X, formerly Twitter.
We in Ukraine know as a fact Russia's goodwill can be generated, but the Kremlin's defeat on the battlefield, that is what is going to generate it. Dear world, please understand, Ukraine's state sovereignty is not a commodity for sale and is non-negotiable. Ukraine will not give up its land or its right to self-determination in any way whatsoever. We know too well that appeasing the monster will only lead to further monstrosities. Russia has repeatedly broken literally any agreements over the last 3 decades. To name a few: Chechnya, Moldova, Transnistrian region, Georgia, Ukraine in 2014 and 2022, Syria. Moscow tactics have remained unchanged through many wars. Kill, lie, deny, repeat. If Russia would want peace talks, it would stop killing civilians and committing war crimes. For the diplomatic path to begin, Russia must start walking it. Its occupation forces must leave Ukrainian lands. I hate to break it to you like that, my beloved audience, but there is simply no alternative to Ukrainian victory. Whatever your vision of reality is, Western values victory is critical to the democracy, freedom, and the rule of international law and immunity of the sovereignty of any state. If some politicians are allowed to trade other countries' sovereignty, fulfilling any dictator's wet dreams, imperial ambitions, it will deliver a clear and loud message to all the autocrats all over the world. Take lands, murder people, abduct children, but it is only a matter of negotiations, right, populists? Poland celebrated Independence Day on Saturday, and we congratulate our friend and strategic partner and reliable ally on their holy day.
Цей день для Польщі так
This day is as important for Poland as it is for us, Ukrainians. The history of our nations is intertwined, and in this it reflects the restoration of independence in our states and how we now take care to protect it. Ukraine and Poland must stand together so that our people are always free. I thank Andrzej for his kind words today about Ukraine and Ukrainians. Thank you for the extremely valuable support that Poland provides to our state and people.
In difficult times for Ukraine, Poland provided all the necessary assistance to us to withstand the Russian invasion. Our defense forces are successfully fighting, in particular, thanks to Polish weapons, Krab howitzers, MSBC Grot rifles, etc., etc. Poland also have sent Soviet weapons to Ukraine. At the beginning of the full-scale invasion, there could not be a better neighbor. Poland was. Poland became the leader amongst the countries that hosted Ukrainians and becoming the main transit hub for aid coming to Ukraine from around the world. Poland's political and diplomatic support is invaluable. Poles, like no one, are aware of what Russia actually is and therefore consistently continue the advocacy and lobbying of Ukraine. Relations between Ukraine and Poland are sometimes complex due to economic competition or historical memory. Nevertheless, Ukraine is convinced that as neighbors and partners, we will certainly overcome the difference because we both strive to develop not only good neighborly relations, but we do have a common mission to curb the Russian aggression. Ukrainian defenders are right now fighting in the cold trenches under downpouring rain, knee-deep in mud, sacrificing the most valuable and important things in their own life and health. So if for some counteroffensive is not fast enough, I have a piece of advice. Go to the nearest military strategist you find and ask him how to win a war without air superiority, having your enemy dug in the ground for 8 months in a row, while your partners were counting pros and cons of giving you the military equipment you need badly to win now and stop this war. And now the same people are not satisfied with how fast Ukrainian soldiers are winning the war. Many around the world are drawing parallels these days between the current situation and the First World War, when armies were trapped in trenches for months. However, a more relevant comparison is World War II, when the enemy was obstinate and Allied operations ranged from failure to success, but in the end, the forces of good triumphed. The true shine of freedom manifests itself in times of most difficult trials. It's when victory seems so hard to achieve that leaders with proper historical vision and moral strength just do not back. They inspire their nation to fight because their way of life, the life itself and everything that matters is at stake. And even in the darkest hours, they move onwards.
Local wars can provoke a global collapse. The suffering in which a particular nation is thrown can drag neighboring nations into the abyss. But the world is not doomed to disasters and suffering. We are capable of making the right turn. It is precisely the cooperation and unity of all who truly value peace that can prevent catastrophes and stop the suffering of peoples. In this, every nation matters.
That is how true power of democracy and freedom looks like. Hardship, blood, war, and that hope that drives forward President Zelensky, his entire team, and us, the people of Ukraine. When freedom is a choice against all odds and challenges, against despair and fatigue, when the prospects are unknown and the enemy's power appears limitless, this is how freedom ultimately prevails. And so will we. Time for more on UATV English, but first some modern history. Ukraine reached a, without any exaggeration, historic milestone on its path to EU membership on November 8, 2023. Following the European Commission's recommendation to begin accession talks, it lays the groundwork for the European Council's critical decision in December. Despite Russia's full-scale war of aggression against us, Ukraine has done an enormous amount of work to successfully and systematically transform and implement all 7 recommendations of the European Commission. The European Commission has determined that Kyiv has sufficiently fulfilled the 7 criteria allowing official negotiations with Ukraine to begin. Ukraine's future is firmly anchored in the European Union. We remain steadfast in our commitment to complying with EU standards and practices. Ukraine has demonstrated an unwavering commitment to defending the values and principles shared by European nations. Ukraine's accession will not only strengthen the EU defense capabilities and food security, but also its efforts to implement the Green Deal, for example, cybersecurity, you name it, digital governance initiative. With that said, we are for the question. And how the question of the week sounds, it was asked on previous Sunday by DSZR8PW, asking, how will EU membership stop the war in Ukraine? Since the beginning of Russia's insidious attack, the EU has been supporting Ukraine in all sorts of ways. Militarily, in particular, funding of the training of Ukrainian forces and assisting European countries in their weapons supply for Ukraine, the economic resources to survive this war is also extremely important. The EU is working with the International Monetary Fund to push it to resume bank lending to Ukraine, which is currently impossible because of the war, of course. If everything succeeds, it will be a very powerful signal for other investors, in particular for the rapid international recovery of Ukrainian cities. And most importantly, joining the EU will be a step towards achieving the goals of the Ukrainian nation 10 years ago. The revolution of dignity occurred after the Ukrainian presidents denounced the European vector and tried to turn Ukraine towards Russia. Just imagine what would happen to Ukraine today if the people had not stood up and would not clear and loud sound out our desire to become a part of European family. The country with which some Ukrainian politicians wanted to become friends in 2013 is now killing us and destroying our cities. As simple as that. That is why we choose the EU, because we know exactly what Kremlin-Russia life are like. If you think that it is good to live in Russia, then go and find out for yourself how people live there outside Moscow or St. Petersburg. This is exactly how Putin wants everyone to live there, according to the laws of, 18th century. And we do not want that. But answering your question, how will EU membership stop the war in Ukraine? The answer is, it will not. The victory over Russian evil cannot be achieved that simple. However, a step towards the EU is no doubt an important milestone along the way of the victory of Ukraine on behalf of the entire civilized world. It was me, Henry Keane, breaking the hard truth in easy terms for you in our weekly wrap-up this rainy Sunday in Kiev. Please do not hesitate to like, comment and subscribe. Let us know what you think. Your opinion matters. Ask us a question, and next time in our weekly episode, I'll do my best to answer it. Stay safe and tuned for more on UATV English. See you very soon.